Before you get into the real estate market, get clarity, perspective, and the information you need.
I've been listening to you, and I love your show.
Right here with broker owner Dan Gemus, host of the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. 12:35 here on AM800. I am Dan Gemus. Matt Alita in studio with me today.
Hello.
Lots of great comments from those listening with their fads.
Trends.
What was trendy? What were the fads when you were young? And some responses still kicking in. Before we get to those, though, we've got our good friend Chris Gibb with Gibb Insurance Brokers on the phone. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How are you guys?
We're fantastic. Now, you've got a couple years on us. What was trendy and what were the fads when you were younger?
You know, before I tell you that, I heard Matt say he was born in 88, and
Yes.
I'm sitting here thinking, I graduated high school in 1988, for God's sake.
You really are aging yourself there, Chris.
I am very old. The life-changing toy that came out for my generation was the Atari 2600
Yes.
video
Nice.
game system.
Yeah.
The with asteroids and what was the other one there?
Pong?
There was Donkey Kong or all
Donkey
those
Kong,
things.
yes.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Now, Chris,
There
I'm a
was
little
a
bit
game-
younger than you are. I'm 41, but I also had an Atari, so it was used when I got it, but I loved it. Loved it.
It was life changing for everybody. It was, you look back now at the graphics and you're like, oh my God, those are horrible compared to the games you can play on your bloody phone now.
I know. It's true. But there you go. So that's awesome. Some more responses that came in from the break were Hot Wheels. We've got Benetton Fashion Wear, Swatch Watch. Alf from the show. Love the show, Alf. It was a great show. So there you go. So some great trends. Keep them coming, folks. We'll keep sharing them live on the air. Send them to us by text 10800. Now, Chris, our discussion today is all about what topic?
You know what? With spring in the air and talking about kids' toys, I thought it would be a good idea to bring up again people's coverage for sewer backup and flooding in their basements.
We're in that season for sure.
The season is coming. Windsor and Essex County just got dumped on there earlier this week. So I think it's with April showers bring flooded basements. So we should.
One thing to mention, Chris, I know a few people that live in Harrow that were part of that massive flood that happened last year, and some of them are still dealing with renovations. It's it's pretty horrible, but that was a bad one last year, wasn't it?
It was horrible. Southern Amherstburg, Harrow, and Kingsville just got inundated, One of the big lessons we always, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Every time this happens, one of the big lessons I learn is nobody looks at their insurance policy to see how much coverage they have.
Yeah, it's true. We all just keep renewing and whatever.
We all look at the price and roll our eyes and gnash our teeth, but you have to know how much coverage do you have. Do you have enough if your basement was to flood, or do you have too much? Are you paying for something you don't need? So it's extremely important you look at that paperwork or call your insurance professional and find out before you go downstairs and see 6 inches of water, how much coverage do I have?
How often does it happen? We just had someone over the past couple of weeks because, as people know, Nikki's parents, their house burnt down to the ground last year. We personally know 3 or 4 people who had house fires, like big destroying house fires, over the last 20 years. And all the flooding, we've had so much. And how often do people say it's not until those big scenarios happen to someone they know that they think, you know what, I'm going to look at my policy a bit closer, right? Yeah. So you don't have to be too late.
Exactly, because once the water's in there, it's way too late. So you need to know how much coverage. And I'll put it to the two of you. Do you too, Matt and Dan, do you know how much coverage you have for sewer backup and flooding in your basement?
Now, I do, because I've got Chris Gibb as my insurance broker, and we talk about it all the time. So I personally do. Matt, how about you?
Well, I don't know the exact amount. I know that I have the coverage because, again, I also have Chris Gibb as my insurance guy. But no, I remember being in the situation before where we had some water issues. And at one point in time, whatever company we were with, because we had a couple claims due to some things that weren't our fault.
Yes.
We ended up having to switch who we were with, and for a time did not have that particular water coverage. And then later on, we were able to get that and make sure that we were nice and protected, because that can be, again, especially in our area, that can be a very big thing to have to deal with.
Oh, exactly. And that's what over and above having the coverage, it's also being proactive and saying, how old is my sump pump? Have I gone down and checked it to see if it actually works? That happened at my house one time. I was in the crawl space, and I noticed it was really humid and warm. And then I realized the sump pump was just running and running and running, and
yes,
it wasn't actually pushing the water out. So thankfully, I noticed and got it replaced.
This past year, with one of those big, it may have been the same weather as the Harrow big flood, but our sump pump broke, and the backup. We have a water backup. Also broke. Oh, wow. So we caught it in time. There was no damage in the basement, but it could have been really bad had we had an issue. Luckily, ours is monitored. We have our sump pump monitored through the alarm system.
So you have a water.
And so the company called us to say the alarm was going off, and that's how we caught it. But both the main pump and the backup, there was so much water coming in that the backup actually, the plumber said the backup actually snapped, like the little mechanism on it snapped because there was so much water coming in. So it just goes to show you have to really kind of keep an eye on it.
Yep. It's one of those things that you don't need it until you need it. So you should. I always tease everybody I shouldn't say tease, but every quarter, go down and just run your sump pump to see if it's working. Check it out, and hopefully it'll be there when you need it.
Now, Chris, let's speak on the comment that Matt made just a second ago. Assuming you do have an issue at your home, so a flood or some kind of claim, let's talk about what happens following that claim with your coverage. Is there typically, if you have a flood in the basement, will that insurance company keep you insured, or will they suggest that you go somewhere else? How would that usually work? That's an interesting question, because there's two factors at play. So it's for your individual characteristics, will they keep the coverage or not? And also it depends on the area that you live. Insurance companies will have typically 3 to 5 different zones for flooding and sewer backup. So if you have a claim and you live in a high-risk zone, they very, very likely will, at the next renewal, say, sorry, we can't offer this coverage anymore. But if you live in an area that's considered low risk, they may say, okay, this was a one-off and the odds of having another one are pretty low, so we'll continue the coverage. Yeah, install a backup or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or that's what they might say, is say, okay, you've had this claim. What have you done to mitigate the chance of having another one in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So and that's why it's important to know, and it's important to shop around. Different companies look at it differently, and for some people, they're willing to pay the extra to have that coverage. For me, my basement's completely finished, and I am essentially useless when it comes to home improvement repairs. So I always have to have that coverage, because I have to hire someone who doesn't have all thumbs to come and replace the flooring and.
No doubt. It's, but this is also goes to show the importance of maybe working with a broker, right? That can shop you around.
Exactly. That's one of the most important things about dealing with an insurance broker, is if that insurance company changes the parameters of your policy, or if your life changes where you buy a house that you need the coverage, when you deal with an insurance broker, they can shop it around to different companies, and you're still dealing with the same person that you've gotten to know and to trust.
Now, Chris, are there areas in Windsor, Essex, where the insurance companies just will not cover flooding?
Well, I guess I would start with saying Windsor and Essex County are generally at the top of all the insurance companies' lists for an area that they're not excited about our coverage for sewer backup. We're pancake flat, so there's it's any water that has to be moved usually has to be pumped out. So the whole region is suspect when it comes to insurance companies. But yes, there are areas, especially near the shoreline, where it's more risky than other areas. Some places like McGregor, when you're right in the flat pancake of Essex County, it's very difficult to pump the water out. So those areas tend to get a little bit higher rates or more restrictive coverage.
Now, Chris, a listener just texted, can you ask Chris, how do you know if you're in a high-risk area? So is there a map that someone can see somewhere, or how do they know? Do that reach out to you or to an insurance broker?
I would say that, the best way is to reach out to your insurance broker, and you can ask, because every company is different in what they consider high, medium, and low risk. So it's sort of a moving target, but quick call to your insurance broker, and they should be able to look it up and give you an idea of your territory.
It would obviously go by address, by postal code, etc. I'm sure that close.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it goes by your postal code.
Okay, interesting. We'll hope that answers the question for our listener there. Anything else happening in the world of insurance, Chris, that you want to mention before we let you go?
No. The world of insurance is just bopping along. We've got challenges right now with high theft vehicles. People are seeing surcharges on their insurance or auto insurance if they have a high risk theft vehicle. So we're talking to people about installing tag systems, which is a theft prevention and recovery system. On the home insurance side, it's the same problem we're always having. The weather's getting worse and the cost of repairs is going up. So, when you get that insurance renewal and it knocks you back on your heels, make sure you pick up the phone and call Gibb Insurance.
Chris, before I let you go, I have one more question. It just came in via text. Question from Mr. Gibb. Did insurance companies recently change their rules about old furnace inspections, and what is acceptable for old furnaces? Is it 30 plus years?
Generally, there hasn't been any changes, but the general rule of thumb is once your furnace gets to be 30 years or older, they're going, if you're not interested in changing it, you will most likely have to get a heating and cooling professional to come in and give it a once-over and get a clean bill of health for it. But that's the general rule of thumb, is once your heating system gets in and around the 30 years of age, they're going to start looking at it a little more carefully.
Okay, awesome. Now, Chris, before I let you go, I always ask, as deputy mayor to the town of Amherstburg, what's happening municipally? Anything exciting going on? Council meeting coming up, I think, in a couple weeks, or the 25th, maybe in a week or so. Anything exciting happening in town?
Well, there's always exciting things happening in Amherstburg. I mean, it's the place to be when you're talking Windsor and Essex County. You know that. You guys know. Some things we're going to be talking at March 25th council meeting. We're going to be talking about changes and improvements to Amherstburg's community investment program. Okay. The town of Amherstburg recently enacted a community improvement plan where we can offer incentives to investors and employers to bring jobs to the community. This is a way to spur investment, because we really want to start building up our industrial base and bringing those high-paying, well-paying jobs to the community. Fantastic. Lots coming up. It's great, Chris. Listen, as always, thank you for coming on with us. We'll talk again in a couple of weeks. Absolutely. Now, you know what? I think I'm going to get off the phone and go on eBay and see if I can buy an Atari 2600. Hey, I'm sure you can find them. It probably won't be cheap, if I had to guess, but I'm sure they're there somewhere. All right, Chris. Chris Gibb, Deputy Mayor of Amherstburg and owner of of Gibb Insurance Brokers. Always great to have you on with us, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks. All right. All the best, gentlemen. Have a great weekend. See you, Chris. Thank you. We're going to come back from break. We're going to give away the Richmond Popcorn Company gift card. You can still sneak in there and have a chance to win by texting the keyword SNACK. SNACK, snack with your first and last name to 10800. Then Matt is going to press on the screen and see who wins right after the break right here on the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show.